Welcome to Crossover the Pond, brought to you by 21 Media Production and Sports Social. He's Drew Lasker, I'm Josh Sexton, and this is a special episode today as we're joined by Dante Marchitelli, broadcaster for the Orlando Magic. Looking forward and looking ahead to the NBA game in London between the Orlando Magic and the Memphis Grizzlies. But first and foremost, before we flip over to our chat with Dante, Drew, how you doing, man? Been another good week of NBA basketball. Have you been enjoying it?
Oh man, every week there's a storyline, and I mean, like I said this a couple of episodes, guys. Like, stay locked in. The NBA.com should be your daily newspaper, because if you take 2 or 3 days out, you're missing out. So make sure you stay connected with your favorite team and also the league in its entirety. But yeah, man, it's so much fun.
Yeah, and we're getting some trade rumors and confirmed trades, I guess, also coming into the wheelhouse of NBA news now. Trae Young to the Washington Wizards for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert being the sort of headline one. It looks like Ja Morant might be on the move as well, and I'm particularly interested in these two trades, Drew, because one of the sort of topics that we've referenced a couple of times already this season is that idea of the supposed death of the small guard. We talked about Jalen Brunson as being something that flies in the face of that. Even guys like Colin Gillespie sort of lower down the NBA pecking order than guys like Jalen Brunson. But it's clear that the Atlanta experiment, if you want to call it that, I'd call it less of an experiment than maybe some people in the media have been saying, because Trae Young reached an Eastern Conference Finals with Atlanta. So whatever you felt about his time there, for me, he's going to go down as one of the greatest Hawks of all time. And I think he absolutely has to be in that conversation at the very least. So kind of sad to see it come to an end, Drew, but very much expected, I think, from the Atlanta side of things.
Yeah, and if there's anything we learned about this new NBA, that nothing lasts forever, specifically with this new CBA, and teams are prioritizing, cap, making sure they stay under the apron. And so there's going to continue to be a lot of moving pieces, and you see the transition, right? Like, the previous 10 years, it was all about player empowerment and, guys teaming up and, players being able to hold organizations at ransom. That's changing now. It feels like you're seeing the transition of the team starting to take a little bit back of the power. And I'm in favor of, 50-50. I think we were going too far down the line where players were having too much control, where it was like 90-10%, but now 60-40. I'm always going to be pro player, and you want players to be able to control their destiny, but it can't be them holding teams at ransom. So teams are starting to get a little bit of the power back, and you're starting to see the NBA change before your eyes. And what really stands out to me about this Trae Young trade is, you mentioned it about the small guard, but for me it goes beyond that. It goes that teams are prioritizing depth and length and youth. I mentioned that before. And so now you legitimately need 9 good, solid players to be able to make an NBA run now, because we've seen the injuries really tick up. So you need that depth. But it's not about having that one superstar guy that's eating up 70% of your salary cap anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if very few guys get max deals now. I mean, you already seen Houston set the precedence with Şengün of him not getting a max deal, although you would assume at the time of his signing that he's a max deal player, even with the Jalen Green deal as well. So I think you're going to see less max contracts. I would bet that in the future there will only be for the superstars, so 10 or less of those going around. Otherwise, the other guys are going to have to take team-friendly deals to make it work, because if you're prioritizing winning, if you're prioritizing NBA championship, you obviously need that alpha guy like Shea with OKC, but you need 8 or 9 goons to be surrounded with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like Jalen Johnson is going to be the sort of centerpiece of the next era of the Atlanta Hawks. You reference, the max contracts and things like that. And I think it's a really good point, because Trae Young will obviously be up for an extension in Washington now. It'll be interesting to see what kind of money he does get, how quickly that comes around, whether Washington kind of want to, give it some runway and leave it to the off season to decide whether they're going to extend Trae Young, or whether part of the stipulation of why he said that Washington was one of the top teams on his list was because he was going to be able to lock that extension in early and lock it in for big money. I quite like the trade for Washington, to be honest. Like the pieces that have gone the other way, while they're helpful to Atlanta, they're both expiring contracts. I could see a future for Corey Kispert in Atlanta potentially because of that sort of off-ball, shooting juice that he gives you. He gives you the kind of Luke Kennard thing, but I can imagine a world in which he puts up more attempts than Luke Kennard because, even as far back as his Clippers days, I can tell you that Luke Kennard is, despite being a very good shooter, quite a shot-shy guy. So hopefully they get a bit more production out of a guy like Corey Kispert. CJ McCollum, I think, will bring them a lot this season, but clearly, at the age that CJ is, not a part of the future. I remember saying to you earlier in the season, free CJ, so I've definitely got my way in that sense. But exactly. But the Trae Young fit in Washington is an interesting one because Trae is 27 now. He's still at the kind of years where he could be in the up and coming peak of his NBA career rather than the sort of back end of the peak of his NBA career. We're definitely seeing guys peaking a little sooner now, and that's interesting in terms of the discussion around Ja Morant as well. But I feel like Washington could do without Trae coming in, taking up all the touches, being a real ball pounder. I think Trae is going to need to, kind of relinquish to a role which he never necessarily played on the Hawks, albeit I think his assist numbers were always a little bit underrated in Atlanta. But, being a guy who shares the sugar, being a guy who makes sure that, some of those young guys on that team with Trey Johnson and Bub Carrington and players like that can go and get their own, and then hope that, Alex Sarr, even with the points that he's able to get, whatever production he's able to get on the offensive end, can turn into that elite defensive player that it feels like he may be taking a leap towards this season, because you're going to need everybody to buy into that defense if Trae Young is going to be your main ball handler and a guy on your team now.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect deal for Washington because they have a ton of money and you have to spend in the NBA. So this is a great gamble for them, and I foresee them offering Trae an extension, but it will be a 3-year team option deal. It won't be a max 5-year deal because they can afford to do it. There's no one on the books due. Sarr is only in his second year, right? So he has 2 more years before he's up for an extension. Keyshawn George as well. Trey Johnson is only a rookie. So there's nobody on there that you got to really pay right now. So you can afford to take this risk with Trae Young, and you lose C.J. McCollum off your book, so you have to spend money in the NBA. But for Trae, he's in a predicament to where he is playing for his future. He'll get his money in the next 2 years, but he will have to prove that he can play in this new NBA. He'll have to adjust his game. He'd have to be a connector with the ball, prove that he can play with more ball movement, prove that he can play off the ball. And for him, he should want to, because if he can prove he could do that, he'll be able to make, some more money for the back end of his career. So a great gamble for Washington. They need a point guard, but more importantly, they need somebody to be able to put bums in seats, right? There's no superstar on the team. You're not going to go see Alex Sarr, right? You're not going to go see Trey Johnson. Trae Young is a seat filler. So he's a hot ticket, hot commodity. So you're going to get a buzz back in the D.C. area, which is good for business. And alongside of filling in a void at the point guard position. I just think this just works perfectly with all parties. The GM there with Washington is the one that brought Trae Young to the Hawks in the first play, that drafted him. So I think this is a deal that works for everybody on the Atlanta side as well. They get shooting with Corey Kispert, but then also you get the off-the-dribble scoring with C.J. McCollum, even though it's going to be temporarily, but you get to fill that void up for this season. So this was a great trade for both sides.
Absolutely, and then I guess the next trade, there's about a month left until the deadline now. The next trade that we may see hot off the presses is another, smallish guard in Ja Morant, albeit a high flyer, someone who definitely plays above his stature, slightly taller than Trae Young, of course. But I'm really intrigued to see where Ja ends up, Drew. There's so many different teams where I can kind of imagine the fit to an extent, but then I always manage to find a drawback in my head. I'm looking at the buying teams that are very desperate. Milwaukee is one where even just in terms of personality style of the guys that Milwaukee have recruited down the years, mercurial guys, the likes of, Kyle Kuzma, Ryan Rollins, guys that have had sort of, off-court issues in the past, or at least, attitude issues, I guess, if you wanted to perceive it that way. I'm not going to go as sort of diluted as to say that Kevin Porter Jr.'s off-court issues are attitude issues, because I think obviously it goes a little bit deeper than that, but he's still a very, mercurial player. So I'd be interested to see if they'd add Ja Morant into that pot, just to kind of, prove to Giannis that they're trying to do something. I'm not sure if Giannis would particularly like that spacing. Maybe there's some sort of pick and roll things that the two of them can do there, as long as they can get more spacing out of Miles Turner. I'm just really intrigued to see where Ja ends up and what the market for him looks like. I feel a bit like there's been maybe a blueprint set by this Trae Young trade. A lot of people saying that it feels like it's, a relative underpay for how great Trae Young has been down the years. I'm not entirely sure that I agree with that, given, as you say, I think it's just a win-win trade for both franchises. But I think if Ja does get moved before the deadline, people may be surprised at how little he's going to go and fetch on the market.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if I would have asked you 3 years ago, if I would have said to you, hey, Josh, Desmond Bane is going to get more trade value than Ja Morant, you would have looked at me if I'm crazy. But that's the reality of what we are now, because that position has changed. I mean, at the point guard position now, these guys are huge. They're 6'6" and bigger. Ja's not big. He's 6'3". You know what I mean? Who relied heavily on athleticism. And I've seen games this year where it is clear he's lost that elite athleticism. He's obviously still a freak to normal people's standard, NBA standard, but he doesn't have that elite level of athleticism where he can just jump over everybody. And what he's proven is that he really relied on that, because he doesn't have the same touch. His shooting is off. He's getting exposed this year. NBA.com printed out some shooting splits, a shooting article a couple of days ago, and they had the top 10 biggest drop three-point percentages from last year to this year, and he's number 3. His percentage has dropped by 10%. He's shooting 30% he's shooting 20% from the three-point line. He was shooting 30% last year, which is way below NBA average. Now you're shooting 20%, and, I cannot see him with Milwaukee. That's an awful fit. I mean, they will be all in Giannis's lap with Ja there. And then also the money doesn't make sense. Ja is still owed 2 more years after this season with that money. And then you got to remember, they're still paying
Dame, yeah.
They're still paying Dame. So I think economically it doesn't work for Milwaukee. From a fit, it doesn't work. And if you make this move for Ja, you got to be saying to yourself, this guarantees us a chance to win the championship and guarantees us that we're keeping Giannis for the next 5 years. And I'm not sure Milwaukee feels that way. So I don't see him going to Milwaukee. The market is kind of dry. The only place that I could really see him in is, again, Sacramento. And I say to be a ticket draw, but Sacramento doesn't really need a ticket draw. They do really well with those ticket sales there. I mean, they just sold they sold out the last couple of games. So last thing about Ja is, in his last 4.5 seasons, he's only played 195 out of a possible 366 games. He's played 53% of his games in the last 4.5 seasons. So what do they say? The best ability is availability. He's not available. He doesn't have that elite athleticism, and he can't shoot. So it's going to be a tough market out there for him.
Absolutely, yeah. It feels like a couple of these sort of big movers that we're potentially going to see in the trade market have just become moves that are too hard to make. It feels like it's where we've got to with Giannis now, is that that market just doesn't really exist in the current guys, and maybe that's another sort of CBA byproduct as well. But we'll continue to keep an eye on it. Here, me and Drew will continue to analyze the bigger picture in the NBA. But now we are going to go into our preview with Dante Marchitelli from the Orlando Magic ahead of the Orlando Magic versus the Memphis Grizzlies. The aforementioned Memphis Grizzlies on Sunday in London. Here's Dante. So I'm delighted to say we have our first guest on Crossover the Pond, and where better to start than the NBA London game this weekend, the Orlando Magic taking on the Memphis Grizzlies. And we have Dante Marchitelli joining us. He's a broadcaster for the Orlando Magic and FanDuel Sports Network Florida. Dante, thank you so much for joining us first and foremost. How are you getting on generally? How have you been feeling since landing in Europe, in Berlin currently?
Yeah, well, Josh and Drew, it's great to be with you guys. I'm super excited to be over here. I mean, it's amazing to us, and we continue to be blown away The NBA is such a global game, and all the places we've been so fortunate to visit over the last years. This will be my 28th. This is my 28th season with the Magic, and we've been to so many different countries across the world. But to see how the game has grown, and now we have 3 players that were born in Germany. We have 5 international players. We had John Amici, who obviously well known in the UK. So to see that fan base and to see that reach is just incredible. I mean, so we left after the game a couple of days ago, and now we've been. It's a little chilly in Berlin, but it's beautiful. And Franz and Mo have been talking about it so much. How they grew up 10 minutes from here, so they're so excited they can't believe that an NBA game is being played in their hometown. So it should be pretty special.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on that in just a bit, but we want to just focus on you quickly as we get out the gates, specifically get inside, your life as a broadcaster, because we've kind of seen the evolution, right? Back in the 90s, even the 80s, the only avenue really into professional sports were a player. Whereas you look now, there's so many roles and other avenues to get inside of the game, like yourself being a broadcaster for the Orlando Magic. Just take us a little bit through your process, just for anyone out there that's inspiring to get into this business of, just take us into, your preparation process and how you prepare and get ready for a game, because they come thick and fast.
Yeah, they sure do, Drew. No, you're right. And it is startling. These staffs have grown. The front office staff was about 8 or 10 people when I started in 1998, and I think our staff is somewhere around 70 now. Wow. Just for the front office, right? So you think of with the analysts and all the scouts, and you have your trainers, and you have all the stuff that goes into it. So that has grown, but these NBA staffs have grown. In 1989 when we started, that was before me, but he had a staff of probably 25, 30 people. We're almost 300 people on our entire staff. So if you're aspiring to be, in the NBA and try to get in with the team, I mean, there's so many avenues now with social media. There's entire departments that are dedicated to social media and marketing, and you got to have social content. And so, yes, if you wanted to be a broadcaster, it was radio or TV, and that was it. And these jobs, they're like Supreme Court justices. I mean, they don't give these jobs up. Once these guys and girls get these jobs, they keep them for a while. So there used to be a thought that you could go to a small city and kind of work your way up and then eventually get with the NBA, or you can get with an NBA team and just work behind the scenes and eventually try to get in there, hope your career path aligns. But I came here in 1998 to Orlando, and I was a radio intern. So I was doing all the production, all the behind the scenes, and then eventually got on the other side of the radio a couple of years after that and started television about 2005. So just over 20 years doing TV as part of the telecast. And now I fill in for David, doing play-by-play on the road when the team is gone, and still hosting pregame show. But, for anybody that is aspiring to get into this business, the first commercial I did, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and if you know anything about Boston, we have thick accents, right? So I came down, I did a commercial, I was all excited about it, and I went into my boss the next day after it ran on the radio, and I said, what did everybody think of my 30-second commercial? And she goes, not only did they not like it, they said you'll never be on their air again, right? Because I had that accent. So, right, at some point, you guys have had, right, at some point we're going to get hit with that adversity, and somebody's going to tell us you can't do whatever it is that you dream of doing one day. And you have the decision to make. You have to say, yeah, they're right, I'm going to go do something else. Or you can say, I'm going to use that as motivation every single day and prove them wrong. And that's kind of what I did. I still think about that, and I use that as motivation to this day. So anyway, for anybody that's discouraged because they can't get into whatever profession it may be, stick with it, because if your heart's in it, you'll get there. So that's kind of how I always look at it. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing to still be doing this all these years later.
Absolutely, and how wrong those people were 28 seasons into working with the Orlando Magic. As you say, you've seen some very different eras then of the Orlando Magic. You've seen the Orlando Magic be a winning team with Shaq back in the day. You've seen them be a bad team at times too, and now they're a good team with a significant European influence that you've mentioned. 3 German players, including the Wagner brothers and Tristan da Silva. Noah Pender is French, of course. Paolo Banchero is half Italian, and even Anthony Black, went and doing my research yesterday, spent some of his childhood in Germany while his father played there. So
very good.
Yeah, how exciting is it for you to be part of the Orlando Magic organization right now as a team with that young core, some of the guys we mentioned there, but so much European flavor to it as well?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's when you go down the path of wanting to do a rebuild, it can take you're not guaranteed. You're not promised to get the number 1 pick or even a top 5 pick, and you're not guaranteed that those picks are going to work. So it's been kind of a process to kind of come out of this rebuild. There's been a couple different variations of it. We had Nick Vucevic, Evan Fournier, again, more European flavor, and they were phenomenal for our organization. Nick Vucevic is the all-time leader in field goals made for the Orlando Magic, so we've seen that different progression. But yeah, when you went to the finals in 2009 with Dwight Howard, and then a couple years after, he wanted to go play for a different team, and you're kind of forced to go a different direction. And that started the whole process here of the rebuild. So now to be coming out of it, guys, it's huge. It's so exciting because you've got 4 or 5 guys that are your main guys in this rotation that are 24 or younger, with Paolo and Franz and have Jalen Suggs, and you continue to go down the line. Now Anthony Black is a big piece of that. So to see how they've progressed has been huge. And now that, the next step is we got to be healthy. You got to get these guys all on the floor at the same time. Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, they've played 11 games this year. They played 6 last year. So we still haven't seen the full potential. So even as good as it feels, it's still been up and down this year. And hopefully we can get healthy here very soon and then just make a run. And who knows? Because I think the sky's the limit. Paolo Banchero is a star. He's a star. He's a superstar in this league. Franz Wagner is a superstar in this league as well. And these guys continue to get better every day, and they're so young. And the sky's the limit for those two. And then you have these great pieces around them. We just got to get it all to fit at the same time. And hopefully we get everybody back, and hopefully it starts on Thursday in Berlin.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. And you mentioned that Paolo and Franz are the superstars. So that's why I want to focus on 2 players specifically, because you're behind the scenes, you're on the flights with these guys, you're traveling, so you get to see a lot of what the fans don't see. So, specifically starting with Anthony Black, did you see this coming, this outburst that we've seen over the last couple of weeks? And then also following up by just take us through Mo's progress behind the scenes of recovering from that ACL, what that looked like, and the up and downs that he went through in order to get on the court a couple of days ago actually.
Yeah, no, you're right. Anthony Black, we always felt needed to make a big leap in year 3. That was kind of the feeling, but no way did I, at least for me, did I expect it would be these kind of numbers. Like he's always such a great defensive player, and he's shown signs of being able to knock down a consistent 3. But, if you look at the last 17 or 18 starts, since he became a starter because of the injuries, he's averaging 20 points per game. I mean, and I don't know that anybody thought he would get to that kind of scoring level, because you're expecting to be healthy. You're expecting Paolo, Franz, Jalen to probably be your top 3 scorers. And then that leaves Anthony Black. If he can get to, can he get to maybe 12 or 13 points per game? That'd be a huge jump. So, but he works tirelessly, guys. He's going to be 22 here in about a week and a half. So still just 21 years old and just coming into his own, just year 3 here in the NBA. So he's still trying to figure things out. He's growing into his body. He's trying to figure out what an NBA point guard looks like, when to score, when to get when to facilitate. And I think the biggest improvement we've seen this year is the way he's facilitating and getting in the paint and setting up his teammates. And that was huge. At Arkansas and in his years in high school, he was able to score. He was always a scoring guard. Then now to facilitate and set that up, he's been one of our more reliable 3-point shooters, which we struggle mightily shooting the 3. And that's such a big part of today's game. And he's one of our consistent guys. So and he always brings it defensively. You watch Anthony Black at the end of a game and how he locks up his man, especially because we played a lot of close games too. We're one of the league leaders in games decided by 3 points or less. And so now you're getting big possessions, end of games, and he's been one of our best defensive players. So I don't think anybody saw a jump as high as this. Everybody felt he could get here eventually, but not maybe in year 3. So I think that's a credit to him. So what does he look like 2 more years from now? I mean, it's unbelievable what this guy's going to do. And then Mo Wagner, if you don't, for people that are watching that may not be as familiar with him, he is passionate. He loves the game. He plays with an edge. He loves to get under the skin of the opposing players, which we love, right? He plays with that kind of chip on his shoulder. But he's always been an energy guy, and he's always been a guy that comes in and gives you all kinds of passion. But last year he was having a career year. So now he's 13 points a game, 5 rebounds, playing the best basketball of his life, and then he tears his ACL. And it was just, for most people, I think that would just be devastating, and it'd take a long time to recover from. But because he's such a cerebral guy and because he's so grounded and because he's about the right things, I think he was able to quickly kind of get over feeling sorry about that and start the rehab. And he attacked that rehab right away. And, for your background, I don't know how many injuries you guys have had in your careers, but there's a lot of days by yourself. There's a lot of days where you're working tirelessly by yourself. And to create the necessary energy to get through that is, very few people can do that and come out still as positive as he has done it. So I think it's a testament to him. He attacked that rehab, and now we need him. Like, we need that scoring coming off the bench. We need his energy. There's a lot of games where we've gone into where we've just been flat and haven't had the energy that we need. He does not allow you to not play hard. And I think that's huge. 82 games is a lot throughout the course of an NBA season. He always has energy. He always brings that passion, and he doesn't let anyone on the floor with him not play that way. So I think that has all been a huge addition to have him back.
Yeah, maybe channeling that Dante Marchitelli energy with the times you've been told no and bounce back from it.
Exactly. You gotta prove people wrong, and he still loves to do that.
Absolutely. With so many top European players in the league now, Dante, I'm keen to know what you've seen in terms of influence or style from the Europeans and how you've seen that transition sort of tangibly change within the league from when you first came into covering it with the Orlando Magic.
Well, it's amazing because, we got the Euro step, right? So you got Franz Wagner, who has perfected his Euro step in the lane and able to finish. So now we're seeing Anthony Black do it. We've seen Desmond Bane do it a few times. So that influence, bringing that Euro step here to this game. The fundamentals, it is just amazing how the Europeans are taught at such a young age the fundamentals of the game. And what we're seeing is now here's Franz Wagner, who's 6'10". Here's Mo Wagner, who's 6'11", 7 foot. But can handle the basketball. I mean, Victor Wembanyama, 7'4", can handle the basketball. I mean, these are 7-footers that can play the point guard position because they've learned how to handle the basketball at such a young age. And the shooting, the form. So I think that's one thing that Europe does an unbelievable job of, is teaching everybody all facets of the game, right? So now these Europeans, when they're coming to the NBA, they're well-rounded in every aspect of the game, and they're grounded and they're fundamental and they're solid. I think that's why we've seen such a big influx. It's amazing. The last 7 MVPs in the NBA have been international players. There's 13 times in the NBA an international player has won MVP, and 7 of them have been the last 7 years. And it's with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in Canada, and then, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo in Europe, and Nikola Jokic. I mean, it's just amazing. And it's not going to change anytime soon. I mean, the MVP, then you're going to have Luka Doncic, and you're going to have Gilgeous-Alexander. It's going to keep going. So it's the influx has been amazing, and they're about the right things, want to win, come over here, work hard, and it's been great for the game. It's been great for growing the game of basketball globally, and it's not stopping anytime soon. It just keeps getting better and better every year.
Yeah, perfect segue, because I wanted to ask you about that global expansion of the NBA in particular, because American sports have always seemed quite insular to me as an outsider looking in from the sort of British perspective. Maybe you and Drew may want to disagree on that, but I think it's definitely changing with the NFL accelerating in popularity and presence abroad, and I'm glad to see the NBA sort of making a more conscious effort to do that in the past few years as well, particularly for me as a UK fan, because sometimes that accessibility can be difficult. So you're seeing that more and more non-American and Canadian players, as you mentioned, international players coming into the league. I'm keen to sort of know how important you think that is, like that global expansion for the NBA.
Oh, it's huge. I think it's huge. I don't know what NBA Europe looks like and all that stuff. I know they're going to try to work all that out, but I think as far as the talent that it's brought to our game and the reach that this game has, is amazing. I look at Mo and Franz had to get up at 3 a.m. To watch an NBA game, and you didn't know what game you were going to get. You're lucky to get one game. Maybe it's on a Friday or Saturday. Now, yeah, there's still get the time change, but now we're changing our game times on Saturday and Sunday. Somebody is playing at 3 o'clock to make sure that we have a good audience in UK or France or wherever in Europe, because it's that important. We want the eyeballs. We want people to grow with the game around the world, because it's been amazing, not only to grow the talent, but the reach. So now you can wake up at any time and you can get any NBA game around the world. And it's absolutely incredible. It was the vision of David Stern, and it's been grown even more here with Adam Silver. So I think it's huge for our fan base. We love our international fans. They come to games every night. You see the building is filled no matter what arena you go to, and it's unbelievable passion that they're bringing to these games, and fans of these teams, and sometimes seeing them for the first time. Almost every night I'm introduced to somebody who came over from England, grew up a Magic fan because of Shaq and Penny, and now we're getting to watch an NBA game for the first time, and to see that through their eyes is phenomenal. I just think it's incredible. And now you've got, Mo and Franz, who cannot believe that there's an NBA game that's going to happen in their hometown, 10 minutes from where they grew up. So think about that, right? Marcin Gortat is here. Marcin Gortat, the only NBA player from Poland, had breakfast with him this morning, and he's thinking, could you imagine if an NBA game was played in Poland, when I was playing in the NBA, right? It's just amazing to think, Dirk Nowitzki, obviously, a lot of popularity for NBA here in Germany. That's where it started. But we're going to see this more and more, and we're going to visit more and more countries, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and it's going to just continue to explode with the Amazon Prime deal, covering these games. And so, you're in a unique situation to where you're up close to these guys. And, a lot of fans, they see them from afar, or mostly they see them on television, and they're in awe. Give us some perspective of your perspective of what you admire being up close to these guys. What really stands out? What jumps out to you seeing these guys closer than us fans would be able to view the?
That's a great question. To me, it's the maturity. I think in years gone by, even when I first started, a guy would come to the NBA. There were very few guys that were coming in 18, 19, 20, right? You still had some high schoolers. There were some high schoolers you could go right from high school back then. But now, guys are coming in after 1 year of school, and they're coming in closer to 20, 21. But the maturity, oh my goodness, because this is a brand. When you come in and come to the NBA, it's more than just you trying to make it for yourself on an NBA team. You're a brand, you're an entity, and you have been working at this since 10, 11, 12 years old with the goal of ultimately getting to the NBA. So when we talk to Paolo Banchero and he hits a game winner and he's reserved and calm, and when I first started, everybody would be running around, running down the floor, and now it's a maturity. It's a different calm and maturity for these guys, and it's a business. It's your career. It's your livelihood. There's so much on the line, and you can do so well if you handle yourself the right way. And I think what we've seen is everybody has taken that seriously, and the commitment to the craft. First of all, you can't get to this level if you're not incredibly passionate and competitive and want to be the best. You can't make it. You can't get this far in this. So all of them have that. So then what separates you? You want to be, you want to be the best at your position. You want to be the best on the team. You want to make an all-star game, whatever it may be. So we're seeing that maturity. And then the tireless work, guys. When the season is over, these guys will take 2, maybe 3 weeks off, and then they're right back at it. It used to be you'd go the entire summer, you wouldn't touch a basketball, and then you get back in shape in September. These guys are working round the clock, almost too much probably. They probably should get more of a break, but they love it. They just love the game. And then how much they give back. I mean, I get to see it up close. When you make it to the NBA, you have so many family and so many friends, and you want to help everybody, but you're busy. You're trying to do your craft. You're trying to perfect your craft. But how much they give back, to their hometowns. They may have 1 day off in a week, right? You have 1 day off, and it's in a 7-day span, and they're going to go spend 3 hours helping donate computers to this, to this after-school program. Anthony Black just had a program with Planet Fitness. We saw Markel Fultz for years giving out Thanksgiving turkeys. I mean, they understand how important it is to help people in their community, and I don't think that gets enough credit because it's not something they do because they have to. They want to. They're about the right things, and I wish that got talked about more because I find that to be very impressive.
Well, let's stay on that topic of your personal insight, because us as fans, on a Wednesday night at 7 p.m., I can watch the Orlando Magic playing in Houston against the Rockets. And then the very next night, I see you in Brooklyn playing Brooklyn. Take us into what that looks like at the end of the buzzer in Houston, and to get to that next city, that behind the scenes of how it all unfolds, the travel schedule.
Well, it's great. It's funny you mentioned that because we were talking about that today. In the last 28 days, we've had 4 days off at home, right? So that's 24 days where we've either played a home game or been traveling on the road, right? So, okay, fine. It's not a complaint. It is what it is, and that's what you sign up for. And there's nothing better, and they don't make any excuses. This is the lifestyle that you do, and it's awesome, right? But after a while, there can be a lot of it just human nature that you can be fatigued. And I think that's why we've seen, if you look at every team in the NBA, the last 10 games, they're either 6-4, 5-5, 4-6. I think we're seeing a lot of that travel catch up to a lot of teams because of what you're saying. And again, nobody complains. It's what it is, and we love it. But you play a game in Houston, there's a game winner. So now that game ends at, what it's going to end at 10:30 West Coast time, Central time, right? So now you're going to fly to Brooklyn. You're going to lose an hour, right? So you're going to get to your hotel. You're going to leave that night, right? You're going to get to the hotel probably about 3:30 if you're lucky in New York, right? So then I don't know about you guys, but it's hard to fall right asleep, right? So now you probably go to bed about 4:30. You're up at 9 for a meeting because you've got a game that night, right? So you sleep a little bit on the plane. But then you go back to your room, you kind of get ready, and then you're on a bus at 4 o'clock going to Brooklyn. And you got to pack everything up again because after you leave Brooklyn, you're going to go to the next city. You may go home or you may go on to the next city. So it's probably not ideal sleep. It's probably not not conducive to, but they're well-trained athletes. They're professional athletes. And, we see it in all sports. And there's an expectation that none of that matters. You still have to go out there and do your job. And they understand that. They never make excuses about it. But it is, for a fan, yeah, you put on the TV at 7 o'clock and see him play Houston. Very next night, 7 o'clock in Brooklyn, you say, okay, we should play just as hard in that game in Brooklyn. and they want to, and they feel like they are. But sometimes it's hard, and sometimes it's the third game in 4 nights and things like that. So, but it's amazing. More often than not, that's the game they'll win, the hardest one when you're on the road and you've got everything stacked against you. So it really is remarkable, the conditioning and how professional they are about it to be able to perform the way they can. It really is.
Yeah, it's funny, Dante. Off air, I was just saying to Drew that I stayed up for the NFL games at the time they were here on Sunday, so fell asleep at halftime of the Chargers Pats game, and I still don't think my sleeping pattern's recovered. So
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing.
We're
we're all exhausted, and we haven't played 1 minute in the NBA. we're all exhausted, and these guys have to go perform. So it really is. I have always found that remarkable how much they can do at this level. It's incredible.
And staying on the topic of the travel, then, how exciting is it for you personally to get to travel to Europe in the way that you've got to this week and experience great cities like Berlin and London?
I wouldn't miss it for the world. I would not miss it for the world because it's, and the fun thing about social media is there's a lot of fans from Berlin that have reached out over the last several months and said, hey, I'd love to meet up when you come over here, because you don't realize they're watching, a lot of times they're watching our broadcast. So they're relying on us to kind of give them some insight on some of their favorite players. And so you get to have this connection with these fans. And for me, that's the best part of all of this, is the connection with the fans, right? We have an obligation as broadcasters to make sure we're giving the fans as much information, as much insight behind the scenes, whatever perspective we can for their favorite team and their favorite players. And we take that serious. And then when we have an opportunity now in the next couple of days to meet some of these fans who grew up, have never been to America, but are diehard Magic fans, it's fascinating to me, absolutely fascinating. So I saw it in London when we went there in 2016. There were some passionate Magic fans, and that they filled that building. And everybody had gear on. I mean, it was awesome, like, to see that. And a lot of them had never even been to a Magic game in Orlando. And I love that. And I think we're going to see a lot of that here. And now you have the success of the German national team in FIBA, and in the Olympics. And now it's just even more so with what Franz and Mo have done, putting basketball on the forefront here in Germany. They love soccer. The German national soccer team has done so well over the years. And now their basketball team is even better. And I think fans love that, and they've really embraced it. So it just blows my mind to see, and knowledgeable, not just, hey, let me put this jersey on, I don't know anything about the team. sometimes know more than I do. It's remarkable the studying that they've done to be ready to watch their team. So I enjoy all of that. I enjoy the interaction. I can't wait to see our fans here at the Uber Arena in Berlin, and I can't wait to see them at the O2 in London.
And I'm interested to know how much you've heard about sports fans in the UK and Germany, I guess, really. You mentioned the sort of soccer element to things there. You've obviously had the chance to experience it firsthand yourself when the Magic came in 2016. But how much are you looking forward to that aspect, that sort of different atmosphere, I guess, to what you'll get night to night in Orlando or any other NBA arena?
Yeah, I love the passion. I love the passion. And, it's one game. So and you don't know when we'll be back, right? So it's already been 10 years since we played here before. So, and they bring it loud from start to finish, and energy and excitement. And, technically it's a neutral site game, but we know Thursday is going to be like a home game with Franz and Mo and Tristan here in the building. So it'll be terrific energy. But I love the passion and the excitement, and you're seeing it through these fans who, again, this may be the only time they ever see this team. It's their favorite team, and they may not get to see them again. Unless they come to the States or unless we come back, for the global games again. And they appreciate that, and they understand that, and they make the most of it. And coming to we do a lot of clinics, and there'll be a lot of activities in London the couple of days leading up to that game. And there's a lot of activities here in Berlin until we play the game here in a couple of days. And they come to all the events, and they just want to be a part of it. And I love that. We've seen the English Premier League teams travel to the States, and the unbelievable popularity that they get from the States and from those games when they play those friendlies in the United States. And now we're seeing just kind of going the other way when we come to these countries in Europe. And I think it's special. And I think it speaks to the NBA. They had a vision to make this a global game, to make this the game that everybody around the world can relate to the most. And my goodness, if they're not there, it's pretty cool.
Well, I'm covering the game on Thursday. Really looking forward to it. It's my first time covering you guys this season. But I followed you guys in the Cup competition. And one thing that really stood out to me in doing my prep is that you guys have gone 21 days without a streak. So without a winning streak or a losing streak. So I'm interested to hear from you. Would you describe that as consistency of the team, or is that inconsistent so far with the team?
Unfortunately, it's been very consistent. That's a franchise record. We have alternated wins and losses for 14 consecutive games. So on one hand, it's great. We haven't lost 2 in a row. But on the other hand, we've got to string some wins together. And that's what we've seen is you're playing a team that's below 500, maybe has a losing record. Some of their best players aren't there, and we've lost those games. And we've had games where we've just been ice cold. This last game that we just won this last game before we came away against New Orleans. But the game before that, Philadelphia, was a winnable game, and we just couldn't knock down shots. So it's been frustrating, guys. It's been frustrating for the fan base. It's been frustrating for the players. You heard Jamal Mosley say a couple days ago, he can feel it. He can feel the frustration with the team. For us to be at our best, we have to be healthy. We have to have Franz Wagner out there. We have to have Jalen Suggs out there. Jalen brings so much energy. He's such a great defensive player. What we're seeing now is point guards are getting in the paint, breaking down our defense. They're kicking it out for open threes. They're able to finish at the basket, and we've not been the same defensive team that we were the last couple of years. We were one of the best defensive teams in the NBA the last 2 or 3 years, and it's just not been the case this year. So we've got to find that. We've got to get healthy. We've got to do a better job of knocking down shots. We're the best team in the NBA getting to the free throw line, so we get a lot of points that way. We got to generate more points off steals and turnovers and all that. But I think that's been frustrating for guys. And you'll see it on nights. If we struggle shooting, then they don't defend as well. But if we're making threes, man, they can't wait to run back, get a stop, and go down and shoot a 3 on the other end. Right? So it's amazing how that picks you up. So we have to be an elite defensive team. We have to be healthy in order for us to play at our best. But yeah, unfortunately, that has been very consistent, this streak of win one, lose one. We're hoping the streak is over because that means we can win here on Thursday, and that'll be 2 consecutive wins. But we need to go on a run. And what you've seen around the NBA is every team is going through this. No team has pulled away Thunder are playing great. The Detroit Pistons are playing great, but everybody else is right doing about the same thing. So I think you have the newness of the season is worn off. You've come through the NBA Cup. You got through the holidays. You're not quite at All-Star game. So you're kind of in that little limbo area where you got to generate your own excitement and your own energy. And I think teams are struggling to do that right now.
Yeah, and fingers crossed there is more good health to come. It seems like there's a chance
Yes,
that Franz
yes.
will be able to play in that game in Berlin, so everything crossed for him for that chance. But there's lots of NBA fans in the UK, Dante, who don't necessarily pick teams straight away. You'll see that in the arena on Sunday. I'm sure there'll be a lot of fans there who are just kind of neutral, might be there in generic NBA gear. I think me and Drew are both going to be there. We're fans of the Clippers and the Rockets, respectively. Myself, the Clippers, Drew, the Rockets. So give those neutral fans out there who are looking to pick a team a 60-second sell on why anybody in the UK listening or watching to this should become a fan of the Orlando Magic.
Well, I don't think there's a group of guys that you'll enjoy following more. They genuinely like each other. They get along. They're great guys. They're easy to root for. They play the right way. So I think they're fun. I think it's enjoyable to be around, and I think you'll really appreciate them first. Secondly, we have stars on this team that are about the right things. Move the basketball, play for each other, play for your teammate. It's a fun brand to watch. They're one of the most up-tempo teams in the NBA, so they like to get out and run. They're very good in transition. They create turns. They're one of the few teams that will defend at a high level, especially when they need to at the end of games. So I think if you watch the whole sample size of the Orlando Magic, you'll be impressed with the kind of people that they are, how competitive they are, and how much they want to win, and how it's a fun brand of basketball. So I would encourage anybody to. It's very easy to root for the Orlando Magic, and this is the perfect time, guys. Perfect time to get on board because they're primed to make a big run in the postseason, and hopefully as early as this year.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Dante, for coming on and giving us your insight into your background as well, I guess, but also the Orlando Magic. I'm really looking forward to that game on Sunday. I'll be rooting for Orlando, partly because we reached out to Memphis for somebody to come on the podcast too, and they didn't put anyone up. So, Dante, you've converted me with your sell at the end there.
I like. Well, hey, real quick, can I ask you guys, and your viewers probably know this, but how did you become a Clipper and a Rockets fan?
Do you want to take yours, Drew, first?
Yeah, I'm from Houston, so I've been in the UK for 20 years. I played here professionally for 16 and retired 5 years ago and kind of transitioned into broadcasting, ironically. So I listened to some other podcasts you were on, and it was very intriguing. And this year I just took over a role for Amazon Prime International Team. So, it's just a role that I just kind of fell into, was never aspiring to get into broadcasting. So that's why your story is so fascinating to me. But yeah, I grew up in Houston. I actually grew up in Germany, ironically, because I'm a military kid. But my family is from Houston, and I settled into Houston. And I'm about that clutch city, baby. The Rudy Tonovich, that back-to-back, you know what I mean? Those are really great memories for me as a kid. And ironically, we took care of business against your baby Orlando Magic, which I can see the look on your face. But yes, those are great memories for me that are everlasting.
I can honestly say I don't think I could ever be a fan of the Rockets because that was so painful. That 90, but they've had some great teams. But that was a heartbreaker in 1995. No question.
I'll try not to sky you as much of my origin story, Dante, but
yes, good.
I grew up, it was on like terrestrial, so free-to-air TV here. It used to be the NBA back in the day, and that was the days of like the Allen Iverson Sixers, the Kobe Bryant and Shaq Lakers. So I grew up watching those teams and just loved Allen Iverson basically because he was that small point guard. He almost felt like when you watched those games, like he was the normal human representative, and all the other guys were the aliens. So I loved that, and then I kind of like fell out of watching basketball because it became pay to wear instead. And I was a kid who didn't have that kind of disposable income. But then when I got to university, my best friend at university was a Celtics fan, and so he was like, "Well, do you want to pick a team as well, and we'll watch the games together?" And I was like, "Well, I'll pick the Sixers," and he went, "No, you won't." so it was
nice. Is that right?
It was around that time when all the Donald Sterling Clippers stuff happened. So I remember me and him settling down to watch the game where the Clippers guys turned the training jerseys inside out against the Warriors. Clippers beat the Warriors that night. It was the Lob City team. There was such an exciting team to watch, and then under the promise of new ownership and all these things to come, which I'd say have scarred me a little, Dante. I'll be honest. Now down the years, when I look back to what a promising young Clippers fan I was. Now sort of 10, 12 years into it, a little bit scarred by everything that's happened since, but still passionate.
Well, I love that. That's what makes this all work, though, right, guys? You got your team, and you're going to be there through thick and thin. I think that's what we'll see on Thursday in Berlin. That's what we'll see in London. And keep up the great work, guys. It's amazing the paths that you've both charted to get here. I think it's cool, and we lose sight of it at times, but there are people that are watching you guys and can't believe you get to do what you do. And that's what makes this fun for all of us, all right? So keep up the great work, and I hope to see you, both of you, here on this journey. See you guys.
Absolutely, Dante. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
You got it.